Good evening, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. In 20 days' time, the Ram Mandir will be consecrated and dedicated to the nation. It is going to be an ultimate testimony of faith for millions of Hindus, millions of Ram Bhakts, not just in India, but around the world. Now, while the BJP insists that this is going to be a national celebration, other political parties beg to differ. For example, I.N.D.I chief Owaisi has said that this is an insult to 500 years of history. Now, that mosque had to be razed down to build a temple. He has, in a way, provoked Muslim youth by saying that they should remain vigilant against any such attempts at other historic mosque sites. Now, the question that Mr. Owaisi and other political parties, there are individuals from the Congress, other opposition parties have also raised questions about the Ram Mandir. The question that they need to answer is, isn't this an insult to the faith of millions of Hindus across this country? And more importantly, isn't it an undermining of a unanimous constitutional bench judgment of the Supreme Court of India? Surely, Barrister Owaisi should know better. But first, the story so far.
नौजवानों मस्जिदों को आबाद रख, हमारी मस्जिद हमने खो दी और वहां पर क्या किया जा रहा है आप देख रहे हैं।
22 का दिन मुसलमानों में हिंदुस्तान की तारीख में काले अक्षरों में लिखा जाएगा।
ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರೀ ಹಿಂದೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಪುಲ್ವಾಮಾ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ರು, ಈಗ ರಾಮನ್ ಫೋಟೋ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ।
हमारा सबका डीएनए आरएनए 1500 साल के पूर्व यदि देखा जाए तो एक ही है। हम सब एक हैं। मजहब नहीं सिखाता आपस में बैर रखना।
भारत आजाद हुए उसके बाद इतना सारा सरकार आए, आप लोग कोई भी करने का कुछ चेष्टा नहीं किए, आप लोग राजनीति करते गए। आज सिर्फ अयोध्या मंदिर क्यों, आज 3 तलाक बोलिए, आज कश्मीर बोलिए, कुछ भी नहीं किए।
All right, but first things first, let's take you through what exactly Owaisi said. He was speaking at a public rally in Hyderabad, and this is what he said, that Muslim youths must ensure the freedom of mosques. He was, of course, referring to the Babri Masjid, which was brought down in December of 1992. He asks a question to these electors who he is hoping to court. Shouldn't we be angry after losing the Babri Mosque, asks Owaisi. Where we prayed for 500 years has been taken away from us. These forces are targeting your faith to end your unity. These are Mr. Owaisi's words. All we have achieved after generations must be protected. And finally, he signs off by saying, it's an appeal to stay vigilant and to stop them being the Hindu community, from targeting our community. So this is an open provocation, if you will, by the MIM chief, asking, in fact, encouraging Muslim youth to ensure that no other mosques are being taken away from them. But clearly, there is brazen disregard. Forget about the politics and how low some political parties and politicians have stooped down to, but this is flagrant disregard for a constitution bench ruling of the Supreme Court of India, which supported the right of Hindus to worship in what they believe and have believed for centuries and millennia to be the birthplace of Lord Ram. So this is what the court said. We cannot reject the Archaeological Survey of India's report as conjecture. The Babri Mosque was not necessarily built on vacant land, that there was something on that land before the mosque was built there. The underlying structure was not Islamic by any nature. The artifacts that have been identified by the ASI in the excavation have a distinct non-Islamic nature. The court's judgment also went on to recognize and note that evidence of the 12th century structure was still there at the site. The places of birth have been identified in proximity to the site. Also, the court judgment specifically mentions the presence and the existence of places like the Sita Rasoi, the Ram Chabutra and the Bandar Grah highlight the religious character of the place. That there is extensive evidence of Hindus worshipping at the outer courtyard well up into the 18th century. The iron railing that was put up in 1856 and 57 suggests that Hindus kept worshipping. And finally, the court says that there was no evidence to show that Muslims were in the exclusive possession of that site. Now, the BJP has taken a direct shot at Owaisi, accusing him of spreading communal venom. The BJP's Amit Malviya has tweeted, and this is part of our Motorola India's Best 5G Smartphones tweet of the day.
Hello, Moto.
This is what Mr. Malviya has tweeted. Asaduddin Owaisi is doing what he does best. He's communalizing the consecration of the Ram Mandir. In 2020, two mosques in Hyderabad, Masjid-e-Mohammadi and Masjid-e-Hashmi, were demolished to build the Secretariat building. But Owaisi, who's a member of parliament from the city, did not utter a word. That is Mr. Amit Malviya in response to Asaduddin Owaisi. So let's get to our big debate tonight. Is Mandir politicking hitting a new low ahead of January 22nd?
Hello, Moto.
Joining us now on the talking point this evening, Tuin Sinha is national spokesperson of the BJP, Abbas Haider is spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Ratan Sharda, author and RSS thinker, Mohammad Farhan is spokesperson of the MIM. Mohammad Farhan, why is your leader, Mr. Owaisi, stooping to such a low, in fact even cohorting Muslim youths to remain vigilant, saying our 500-year history has been destroyed, our mosque has been taken away from us and so on, when a constitution bench of the Supreme Court has ruled unanimously that this place belongs to the Hindus and this place needs to be given its due recognition and due place in the fate of millions of Hindus. Why is Mr. Owaisi politicizing this issue?
देखिए जयकत साहब, मैं एक बात आपको पहले बताना चाहूंगा कि बैरिस्टर असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब ने जो बयान दिया है वो बयान उनका एक गलत तरीके से उसका मायने निकाला जा रहा है। बैरिस्टर असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब ने सीधा कहा है कि आप अपनी मस्जिदों को आबाद करो और मस्जिद आबाद करने में कहाँ कोई आपत्ति है। और रही बात बाबरी मस्जिद की, आप जो कर रहे हैं 500 साल नमाज पढ़ने की, तो मैं एक बात कहना चाहूंगा, बाबरी मस्जिद हमारी शहीद की बजरंग दल, आरएसएस, विश्व हिंदू परिषद और भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लोगों ने, ये बात का हमें मलाल ताउम्र रहेगा और हम अपनी आने वाली नस्लों को भी ये बात बता कर के जाएंगे कि 6 दिसंबर 1992 को बाबरी मस्जिद आरएसएस, बीजेपी और उनके सहयोगी लोगों ने करने का काम किया है। तो दूसरे
फरहान साहब, लेकिन ये तो 30 साल पहले हुआ ना, ये जो घटना आप बता रहे हैं, दिस हैपेंड 30 इयर्स अगो। आज के जो जनरेशन है, सुनिए बात सुनिए, आज के जो जनरेशन है मुस्लिम युवाओं का, उनको तो अता पता भी नहीं होगा। I mean, you are rekindling needlessly for your politics ghosts of the past.
देखिए ये आपकी गलतफहमी है या आपका भ्रम हो सकता है या औरों का भ्रम हो सकता है कि मुस्लिम समाज के नौजवानों को पता नहीं है। मुस्लिम समाज के नौजवानों को पता है और हम अपनी आने वाली नस्लों को भी ये वसीयत करके जाएंगे कि 6 दिसंबर 1992 को जो काला अध्याय लिखा था उसको अपनी आने वाली नस्लों को भी बताते जाना कि मस्जिद शहीद करने का जो काम किया था वो बीजेपी, आरएसएस और बजरंग दल।
This is what Mr. Farhan is saying, that not just the generations that lived to see that day of 6 December 1992, but even future generations, according to him, will be educated about what happened on that day. And you know, I think this is where the problem is. Collectively, as communities, as nations, as states, we need to have the ability to move on beyond dark chapters. Every society, every community, every country has those dark chapters. But you can't be clinging on to, grievances and remorses of the past and then saying, even our future generations will be reminded of it. Tuin Sinha.
Well, good evening, Zaka. Good evening, everybody. Asaduddin Owaisi represents the Hamas mindset in India. You know, he represents an ultra radicalized, ultra retrograde small cluster which is constantly at war with the notions of a modern nation state. That should summarize his thought process, because the entire battle was a 491-year-old battle which got eventually settled, and like you mentioned, in a 2003 report, the ASI had very clearly corroborated that a temple had been destroyed, and above which the mosque had been constructed. It's a fact that 40,000 temples in this country have been destroyed by invaders, and we are not seeking justice for all of them. But the fact is that closure comes when you accept that the Ram temple, the revered Ram temple, which is believed to be the birthplace of Bhagwan Ram, was destroyed by Babur in 1528, and this entire matter has been settled by Supreme Court. So where is the question of fear mongering? Where is the question of outrage mongering? It basically just shows that he has a vile intent. And since Samajwadi Party is also present over here, there are sections within the Samajwadi Party which still subscribe to that mindset, where they once celebrated the killing of car sevaks. Shafirul Barq, their senior most member of parliament, has been on record saying that he will pray for the construction of a mosque at the same place once again. He is the same person who had celebrated the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I think these elements are people we need to be very careful against, because they have zero respect for the judiciary.
Leave aside jo politics jo chal rahi hai, that's fine. Political parties keep doing this tu mein. But at least can we look at what the Supreme Court judgment said? The Supreme Court judgment said we cannot reject the archaeological survey report as conjecture. Babri Masjid Mosque was not built on vacant land. The underlying structure was not Islamic. The artifacts that have been excavated from there have a distinct non-Islamic nature. There is evidence of a 12th century structure at the site before the Babri Masjid was built. This is the Supreme Court of India. ये बीजेपी, आरएसएस, तुहिन सिन्हा नहीं कह रहे, ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट कह रही है ये. And this is a constitutional bench of the Supreme Court in a unanimous judgment.
Zaka, I truly agree with you. See, when the Honorable Supreme Court of India has given a verdict on this issue, there has been no dispute at all. Basically, the verdict was accepted and respected by every citizen of this country. This is a fact. And if you'll dig the what has happened in the past, so basically Zaka, the Supreme Court in its judgment had never even said that the mosque was built over a temple. It could be anything. There was a structure. However, if you go through the detailed report of the ASI, it also said that there might be a mosque. A mosque would have built over a mosque. But I'm not getting into the merit of that. There is a full stop on this issue when the Supreme Court has given the verdict. We respect the Supreme Court verdict, and there is a very auspicious occasion which is going to happen on the 22nd of January.
So, Abbas Saab, then why is your MP, Mr. Barq, saying this will be a black day for Muslims? Ye Shaheed Divas hai and all that. This is your MP. This is not, again, like I said, this is not Zaka Jacob saying, or any of the panelists on this show saying. Shafiqur Rahman Barq is the senior most member. He's an elder statesman of your party, senior most MP in your party. He is saying this. 22nd January is going to be a black day for Muslims. ये उनका कहना है.
You have asked me two questions. Let me answer them one by one. First of all, once the Supreme Court judgment has come, nobody has raised a question on that. And certainly, would the BJP spokesperson like to own what has happened on the 6th of December 1992? We do have a legal procedure. There is a rule of law in this country, and by the rule of law, the decision of Supreme Court has come. Basically, Bharatiya Janata Party has delayed the process of construction of Ram Mandir. They have derailed it. That is what they have done. Let me tell you. And one more thing. As far as Asaduddin Owaisi's party, AIMIM, is concerned, they are basically complementary to Bharatiya Janata Party. What Mr. Tuhin Sinha would not say, he would ask his friend to say on his behalf. Basically, it is a
okay. Let me also bring in Ratan Sharda. Ratan Sharda, again, I have to play devil's advocate on this show. There has been a tragic set of events associated with December of 1992, right? Nobody wants to go into that history. But to have this overhyped situation, opposition is saying that BJP is milking this for political gains. The reason why the Ram Mandir is getting inaugurated now in January of 2024 when it's not fully complete is because of elections. The Modi Sarkar wants to milk it for elections. Is the Ram Mandir being used and its consecration being used by BJP and its allied entities for political purposes before a crucial election of 2024? And is that taking away from what was clearly a painful history that happened on 6 December 1992?
First of all, Zakar, let me explain that this is a huge complex, this is a huge temple. It has got different phases. On 22nd Jan, the first phase has been completed where the Ram Lala's Murti will be having Pran Pratishtha, and then other phases will follow. So it's not a question of now being inaugurated, when being inaugurated. When people ask for date, Tarikh nahi batayenge, Tarikh has been given. So whether election comes or not, this is a generational change, this generational urge of the Hindus to see Ram temple being built at the earliest, that is being honored. If you remember, these pillars are being carved for last 30 years in the Karsevakpuram. So that means it's a very urgent sense of the Hindus. Now coming to the other issue, this AIMIM spreading poison, not just once a mosque, always a mosque. Mosque is just a praying space. Everybody, including courts and maulis, are ruled it, and they can even worship on the roads and grounds. So does it mean that the roads and grounds become permanently mosque? They don't. Similarly, it's a prayer hall for Hindus. It's a Pran Pratishtha. God lives in a particular place. That is why God is taken as minor and cases are fought in the name of Vishnu and Shiva and Krishna in various courts. That is point. And they should realize that even before Islam was born, Mandir was there. Now they have a gall of Waqf board claiming a village and a temple as theirs, a temple which existed before Islam was born. So these kind of outrageous comments when you say it's a शहीदी हो गई, भैया वहां मंदिर था और वहां मंदिर वापस बना. आप हागिया सफाया को क्या कहते हैं? टर्की के अंदर without any call, government simply sent a fiat and converted a church into a mosque. They will not open their mouth. Here Hindus waited for years together to go through the process of law, while as a majority they could easily steamroll everything. They did not. So this kind of urge. So to claim that Mandir, which is built before that, has no sanctity, only mosque has sanctity, and saying शहीद हो गए हम बच्चों को सिखाएंगे, आप बच्चों को ज़हर बता रहे हैं.
कि तुहिन सिन्हा also talked about this. It is a recorded historical fact that multiple thousands of temples had been destroyed over the 5th, 6th, 7th century, and of course leading up to the Mughals, through the Mughal periods and so on. Multiple temples had been destroyed and mosques had come up in its place. The only site where this dispute has been going on for the last 30 years and finally it was resolved by a court judgment was Ayodhya. Kyunki Hindus, millions and millions of Hindus in this country and around the world believe that this was the birthplace of Lord Ram. It is not like any of the other sites where temples had been destroyed and mosques had been built. Now, nobody else is claiming any of these other places. Yes, court mein मामले चल रहे हैं, Ratan Sharda is right about it. But I will quote for you what the RSS chief, Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, said right after the Ram Janmbhoomi verdict by the Supreme Court. This was in November 2019. उन्होंने ये कहा कि हमारा जो स्ट्रगल था, हमारा जो मांग थी, वो सिर्फ अयोध्या के लिए ही था. हम मथुरा, काशी, बाकी जगहों के लिए नहीं मांग रहे हैं. This is the words of Mr. Bhagwat. So why can't the Muslim community gracefully accept that this is the holiest of holy places for Hindus? And yes, a sad chapter has been closed. Now it's a new beginning for all of India. And that includes Hindus and Muslims. Mohammad Farhan.
देखिए जैकब साहब, मैंने तुहिन सिन्हा जी को भी बहुत अच्छे से सुना, उनकी बात को भी, रतन शारदा जी को भी मैंने सुना. अब मैं अपनी बात कहना चाहूंगा. आपकी बात को मैं पूरी समझ गया. मैं एक बात, आपने भी कहा ना, मोहन भागवत जी ने कहा कि हमें राम मंदिर मिल गए, इसके बाद हमें कोई चीज नहीं चाहिए. ठीक है, आई एग्री. हमारे अंदर जो भय बना हुआ है या डर है जो भी चीजों का, तो उस डर को खत्म कर दीजिए ना. आप स्पष्टीकरण कीजिए कि हम जो काशी और क्या नाम है मथुरा की शाही ईदगाह या बदायूं की शाही मस्जिद या लखनऊ का जो शाही मस्जिद है उन पे जो पीआईएल करा रखा है हाई कोर्ट में, जो कोर्ट खेल रहे हैं, इस पीआईएल को वापस लीजिए और ये बताइए कि नहीं ये बिल्कुल प्रोपोगंडा है, इस प्रोपोगंडा से हम बिल्कुल समर्थन नहीं करते हैं, हम हमारी
नहीं वो अलग लोग नहीं एक सेकेंड अगर आपके पास कुछ प्रूफ है कि आरएसएस ये जो कोर्ट में जो मामले चल रहे हैं उन्होंने उसको फंड किया है या उन्होंने उनको पुटअप किया है तो फिर पेश कीजिए। नहीं जो लोग वो मुकदमे चला रहे हैं कोर्ट में उनका कोई लेना देना नहीं है। रतन शारदा जी बैठे हैं यहाँ पे, वो भी बता देंगे। रतन शारदा, मिस्टर फरहान इज सेइंग दैट डिस्पाइट व्हाट द आरएसएस चीफ सेड, there are separate litigations for Kashi and Mathura that are happening in courts. Is this being done at the behest of the RSS or are other individuals behind those PILs and those litigations?
Zakat, these people are very expert in falsehood. The cases of Kashi Vishwanath and Mathura have been there in the courts even before Ram Janmbhoomi struggle started. RSS, the first resolution passed was for not for Ram Mandir, it was for Kashi Vishwanath. And the case being fought by Jains, the Hari Jain ji and Vishnu Jain, are even before the agitation started. Krishna Janmbhoomi chaos was created by Congress party by creating a new front of Seva Sangh, which was not there. The land was owned by the Krishna Janma Mandir Trust, and that was being bartered away by a new trust who never owned it. That is a fraud on us. That fraud is being taken as legal. That was much before the agitation started. So people have a right. RSS will not run any Andolan. But can we stop any Hindu from going to court and seeking justice as per laws of the land?
Okay.
You talk of constitution all the time. And what are you saying? You always say Sharia कानून से constitution से ऊपर है, जहाँ मौका मिलता है ट्रिपल तलाक के आपने यही कहा था। आप बार बार कहते हैं बाबरी किले में भीख नहीं चाहिए, वहां पर अयोध्या में हम वहां मस्जिद नहीं बनाएंगे। This is the language of AIMIM. And the same AIMIM which has even attacked Bhagya Lakshmi. They attack Bhagya Lakshmi renovation. ये बैठे हैं ना,
the issue is also, and credit be where credit should be due, and that is that after the Supreme Court verdict in 2019, there was a lot of apprehension that there'll be violent reaction and that there will be violence, there will be a repelling of that judgment by the Muslim community. None of that happened. No law and order incident happened, and credit I think to the law enforcement agencies and credit also to the people of India. I think our politicians regularly underestimate the people, the strength, the resilience of the people of India, that they have the ability to move on, that they can let closed chapters be closed. The accusation from the opposition, Tuhin, this time around is that you are opening a can of worms. That you are using this for your political purposes because you have an election to win 3 months down the line, and therefore you are using this conveniently to time it politically, to use it for electoral purposes, milking it for electoral purposes. That's the opposition's charge.
Zaka, first of all, I think you are giving credit to unnecessarily, you're being too gracious in giving credit to where it does not belong, because the judgment came out in November 2019. In February 2020, exactly 3 months later, the same party, MIM, was issuing threats that 15% जो population है 85% उनके सामने नहीं टिकने वाली है इस देश में. This is the kind of language they were using. But yes, they have been weakened to an extent that they can't do much more beyond fear mongering and outrage mongering. Now let me simplify this issue for you. There are large sections of people in this country who believe that India's history goes back to 8,000 years. Please don't interfere in between. There are large sections of people. अभी बीच में मत बड़बड़ाइए ना, मैं कोई important बात कह रहा हूँ, आपका turn आएगा. There are large sections of people in this country who believe that India's history goes back 8,000 years, but there are some segments of people, which includes the present day Congress party, which includes MIM, which includes sections within the Samajwadi party, that perhaps believes that the history of India started in 1191 with the invasion of Muhammad Ghori. Those people are in extreme fear because the history of India is being corrected. For us, it is not a political issue. It is a spiritual issue. It is a civilizational issue. It is a national issue. And socio-political narrative
this is not a political issue. It's a civilizational issue. It's an ye aastha ka sawal hai. This is a phrase that we've heard so many times in the last 30 years. Just to draw a parallel, tomorrow if somebody comes and says, Bethlehem is not the place where Christ was born, or Mecca is not the place where Muhammad was born, would that be acceptable to members of the Christian community or members of the Muslim faith? So, in that same vein, Lord Ram is the biggest god that Hindus believe in. Diwali is the biggest festival that all of India celebrates. It marks the return of Ram to Ayodhya after 14 years of Vanvas. In that place where millions of Hindus believe that Ram was born, should the whole country not accept that yes, that is the belief of millions of people in this country, and therefore that place needs to be the holiest of holy for Hindus, just like Bethlehem is for Christians and Mecca is for Muslims?
Zaka, it is. There is no doubt about it. See, there is no issue at all. A BJP spokesperson was just telling us that it is a issue of आस्था. तो आप ये बताइए, if it is a spiritual and issue of आस्था for you, what is your role in the judicial process which has happened in past 3-4 decades? What is your role? You have only delayed and derailed the process. Yeah, you are sitting in the power, so you have appointed the member of the trust. Now they are inviting people according to your wish and will, because you want to use this in 2024 election. But do you think the people of the country, you are going to make fool of them? Are they stupid? They don't understand. इनको जो हजारों करोड़ रुपए आया है चंदा, उसका हिसाब नहीं दे पाए हैं अभी तक. जो इतना बड़ा स्कैम हो गया लैंड में अयोध्या में, उसका हिसाब नहीं दे पाए.
रतन शारदा, please respond.
There is no question. भगवान राम is मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम for the entire
please respond.
But are they मर्यादित? क्या ये भगवान राम के रास्ते पे चल सकते हैं?
Let Ratan Sharda respond, Abbas Haider. Yeah, Ratan Sharda.
First of all, I want to repeat one thing. Delay was always done by Congress and the socialist cohorts who had Marxist, leftist egging on Muslims not to accept the history. अरे बात करने दीजिए ना, बात करने दीजिए.
One second, let Ratan Sharda ji finish and then उसके बाद.
So they have deliberately delayed by Samajwadi Party and Congress. I have got a friend who has got photographs of car sevaks been killed with sandbags being put on their legs and thrown into Saryu and discovered 2 bodies. What is the answer to that? So these people who delayed the temple, who instigated Muslims to fall for leftist narrative, are talking of these things today. Kapil Sibal said in courts, "Maddo jaldi judgment," or they cannot delay. They never came for the negotiations. They are saying we delayed it. And remember, very important thing: on 6th December 1992, no other mosque, no other place of worship was touched in entire day or 2 days after this Babri structure was demolished, which shows that Hindus had only anger and only importance for that particular place where Ram Janmbhoomi is. Okay. Rather than trying to take any revenge on Muslims. Why don't everybody appreciate that? And if he cares to read Sitaram Goel's book, Hindu temples, what happened to them? Islamic evidence, not Hindu evidence, not RSS evidence. They will not talk of that. For them, only they are right, everybody is wrong. So trying to instigate people on such a wonderful occasion, and everybody is rejoicing and cribbing about it. Bhagyalakshmi temple was not even allowed to repair by same man.
मोहम्मद फरहान, ये जो पूरे देश के लिए और हजारों मतलब lakhs and lakhs, millions and millions of Hindus के लिए जो एक पर्व होगा, ये जनवरी 22 को जो consecration ceremony होगा, प्राण प्रतिष्ठा जो होगी, ये एक उत्सव होना चाहिए पूरे हिंदुस्तान के लिए. इसमें आके असदुद्दीन ओवैसी और आपके पार्टी के बाकी लोग आके भड़का रहे हैं मुसलमानों को कि देखो एक मस्जिद तो उन्होंने छीन लिया, बाकी मस्जिदों के लिए भी आएंगे. ये तो गलत बात है.
जैकब सर, मुझे आपने सबसे कम बोलने का मौका दिया. मैं प्लीज आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि मुझे कम से कम 1 मिनट बोलने का मौका दीजिएगा.
बोलिए.
देखिए, अभी हमारे बीजेपी के स्पोक्स पर्सन ने तमाम बातें की हैं, उनको कहां किससे जोड़ा है, मैं उसको भी आऊंगा. मगर मैं पहली एक बात बताना चाहता हूं, एमआईएम का प्रवक्ता होने के नाते ये बात कह रहा हूं कि एमआईएम पार्टी और बैरिस्टर असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब ना तो मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम का विरोध कर रहे हैं और ना उनके बन रहे मंदिर का विरोध कर रहे हैं. ये बिल्कुल क्लियर कट बात है. हमारी लड़ाई जो भी है वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी से है, हमारी लड़ाई आरएसएस से है, बजरंग दल से है, विश्व हिंदू परिषद से है, शिवसेना से है, कांग्रेस से है.
क्यों? क्योंकि इन सब ने षड्यंत्र रच के वहां पर बाबरी मस्जिद को शहीद करने का काम किया, और ये लड़ाई हमेशा कयामत तक जारी रहेगी। दूसरी बात मैं कहना
आप फिर
चाहूंगा,
वही बात कह रहे हैं कि मतलब अगले पीढ़ियों को भी हम याद दिलाते रहेंगे, ये शहीद दिवस है। अब वही सेम बात कह रहे हैं ना आप। ये आपके वाक्य में एक मूव ऑन या फॉरगेट एंड फॉरगिव का कोई स्पिरिट ही नहीं है।
देखिए, इंडोक्ट्रिनेशन का एक सबूत आपके सामने दे रहे हैं ज़क्का। दिस इज हाउ दे इंडोक्ट्रिनेट द फ्यूचर जनरेशन।
ये तो गलत बात है ना खान साहब।
बिल्ड हेट्रेड फॉर द मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी।
उसकी सही और गलत जो 30 साल पहले हुआ उसमें कोई जा नहीं रहा, लेकिन कैन वी लेट क्लोज्ड चैप्टर्स बी क्लोज्ड? ये तो नहीं कह रहे ना आप कह रहे कि आपके अगले पीढ़ी को भी आप याद दिलाएंगे।
अच्छा,
ये तो भड़काने वाली बात हुई है।
एक मिनट जक्का साहब, मेरी बात, बहुत आप इंटेलेक्चुअल, इसको मैं आप जान रहा हूं कि बहुत आप इंटेलेक्चुअल एंकर हैं, एक अच्छे जर्नलिस्ट हैं। आप ये बताइए, अगर किसी के घर में कोई हत्या हो जाएगी तो वो याद नहीं रखेगा, उससे कहा जाएगा कि आप भूल जाइए, आपको याद नहीं रखना है। जो बीत गया।
नहीं, ये दोबारा गलत बात है, ये दोबारा गलत बात है। मैं आपको याद दिलाना चाहूंगा कि देश के राष्ट्रपिता महात्मा गांधी ने ये बोला कि इफ यू आर गोइंग टू टेक एन आई फॉर एन आई, द होल वर्ल्ड विल बी ब्लाइंड। ये अहिंसा का जन्म स्थान है हिंदुस्तान, and in that place to say that we will dig up skeletons from 30 years ago, we will remind our future generations what happened on 6 December, ये forget and forgive की attitude नहीं है, ये as Tuhin Sinha said, and I'm sorry to use those words, ये indoctrination का attitude है, and I hope that does not happen. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. I'm completely out of time on debate 1. Tuhin Sinha, Ratan Sharda, Mohammad Farhan and Abbas Haider, thank you for joining us. Let me now shift focus to debate 2, and again it's in a way linked to the Ram Mandir inauguration that's going to happen later this month. In Karnataka, the police have arrested a person identified as Shrikant Pujari. He was booked for rioting in Hubli, which happened during the violence in the aftermath of the Babri Masjid demolition back in December of 1992. Now at the ripe old age of 60, Shrikant Pujari has been arrested. He's been sent to judicial custody. The Chief Minister, Siddaramaiah, has said that an offender is an offender till he or she is acquitted by a court of law. The State Home Minister has also said that this was a routine arrest as part of a drive to clear pending cases, and this was as per a court order because Mr. Pujari had not honoured summons issued by the court. The police say they have taken up 37 cases that were pending for 30 years plus, among which one of it was related to the 1992 riots. The BJP, meanwhile, has accused the Congress of having an anti-Hindu agenda, claiming that it is scared and it is trying to scare Ram Bhaks ahead of the inauguration of the Ayodhya temple.
ಅಪರಾಧಿನೇ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಪರಾಧ ಅದು ಹೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಇರ್ತದೆ. ನಾವು
ಈ ರೀತಿ ಹಳೆ ಕೇಸ್ಗಳಿರೋದು ಸರಿನಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡಪ್ಪ, ಈ ಹಳೆ ಕೇಸ್ಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ನ್ಯಾಯ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಆಗಿದ್ರು ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಆ ಕಡೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪನಿಷ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬೋದು, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಖುಲಾಸೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು.
ಈ ಹಿಂದೂ ವಿರೋಧಿ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ವಿರುದ್ಧ, ಈ ಹಿಂದೂ ವಿರೋಧಿ ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳು ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯನವರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ನಾವು ಹೋರಾಟನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ.
ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯನವರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ ನೀವು ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ? ನೀವೇನು ಮೊಘಲ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ನಡೆಸ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
All right, is this a clearly politically driven move to rake up a 30-year-old case and to arrest a car sevak for rioting just a few days before the inauguration of the Ram Temple? Prashant GS is spokesperson of the BJP. Kamru Chaudhary is a political analyst. Prashant GS, you heard what the Chief Minister said, that an offender is an offender till a court of law acquits him or her. In the case of Mr. Shrikant Pujari, the government and the police were acting basis a court order that Mr. Pujari had not honoured a summons that was issued to him not once or twice but 3 times. This is the government's defence.
Zaka, Siddaramaiah is doing what he does best, cherry picking of cases, because when the matter relates to PFI people who indulge in terrorist activities, they want to forthwith release PFI people. DK Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah themselves want to voluntarily release them. DK Shivakumar writes letters saying we want to release PFI activists, and then our Home Minister Parameshwara refuses to call a person who was caught with RDX in a terror plot as accused. He does not even call them as terrorists. He says they've been caught. They may be accused. Why should we even talk? So this is completely anti-Hindu mindset. They're anti-Ram. They're anti-Ram Mandir. And they're only doing this for appeasement and nothing else. Because what now justifies this timing to say that they're digging up old cases and the only one they found was one belonging to Karsevak and nothing about PFI. And recently a Jain monk was murdered. They will not go about it.
Mr. Kamru Chaudhary, please respond. I believe between 2013 and 2018, when Siddaramaiah was Chief Minister, there were about 200 cases against PFI members, many of whom the case was closed or they were pardoned, basis, of course, instructions from the government as has been perceived or as has been alleged by the BJP. But when it comes to car sevaks, you are using a different yardstick, you are cherry picking. That's the allegation from the BJP.
I believe you are a journalist old enough to understand how the legal system of this country works. Even our Punjab president Navjot Sidhu went to jail on a very old case. Judgment came some 20-30 years afterwards. But in this particular case of Karnataka, my friend here from the BJP is not aware that as on May 2022, there were around 21.4 lakh cases pending, out of which 18.9 lakh were pending in the lower courts and 2.5 lakhs in the high court. Even our country's home minister on the floor of the parliament.
We don't want numbers here.
Please,
don't give me numbers.
Yeah, Prashant, one second. Prashant, one second. Let him finish.
Don't get so rattled that you don't have a reply on this. Even the home minister of the country on the floor of the parliament, he said that all these pendency cases needs to be cleared up. So we are bringing in the 3 criminal laws. Now, what's wrong in the government of Karnataka ordering the pendency cases to be cleared as soon as possible?
No, but Mr. Chaudhary, the allegation is, how come you have woken up to this case of rioting from 30 years ago, 20 days before the inauguration of the Ram temple? Surely court summons had to be honored even before.
Zaka, I believe you must have taken a legal opinion before getting into this debate tonight, because the simple point is that once an FIR has been registered, it needs to be squashed by a court. Now, if the person has been summoned by the court, he is not appearing repeatedly, then he needs to be arrested. This is not the only case that is happening. It's the habit of the BJP to cherry pick this particular case and say that the Congress party is against the Ram Bhaks and all these things. But if
GS Prashant, the Hubli police have put out these details as well just some time back. The Hubli police are saying that Mr. Pujari is wanted for multiple cases, 16 cases, I believe, not just one. One of those cases is related to the 1992 riots after the Babri Masjid demolition. 8 cases relating to illegal sale of liquor. 1 case relating to illegal gambling. So surely, why is the BJP going out on a limb fighting for a criminal?
Zaka, we are not here to support anybody who has broken the law of the land. In BJP, we don't ever do that. Unlike Congress, they refused to even file FIRs in the case of DJLD, KJLD riots. They could not even protect their own Congress MLA. They knew who the rioters were. They sided with the accused and they gave their versions. So therefore, it is not about BJP siding with the criminal. What we are saying is the cherry picking by Siddaramaiah government. They were in power from 2013 to 2018 and 2019 as well. Which means that at that point in time, was there a total intelligence failure to track one Shrikant Pujari then? They have Karnataka government and Siddaramaiah, DK Shivakumar woken up now to say that this case has to be brought out now, which is why your timing is suspect and the intent is even more suspect. Because
Prashant,
we know Congress is a party which said Lord Ram is fictional. Congress is a party which said Lord Ram is fictional. So what more can you expect from people who despise Lord Ram and want to appease a particular community at any cost?
Okay,
this is what we get.
Kamru Chaudhary, again it comes back to this selective amnesia. When it comes to PFI members, you don't want to act or you're seemingly pardoning them. That's the allegation from the BJP. Mr. Prashant also referred to the Jain monk who was killed in broad daylight. I believe that some of the accused in that case are still out at large. So the point is that why are you digging up old cases from 30 years ago, that too selectively, when there are far graver crimes that have happened just in the last 6 months since the Siddaramaiah government came to power?
No, I doubt if this particular case has been singled out selectively, because the entire order that has come out from the CMO office is track all those old cases and dispose them off as soon as possible. So this particular guy, unfortunately, from the right-wing ecosystem, seems to be caught up in this case. Like the same case, the police took 2 months to track the 3 BJP IT cell members in the rape case of the BHU. So
what about the Rajasthan rape
you
case
know,
where the minister was accused, Congress MLA was accused?
Worst part is that the Bharatiya Janata Party will try to support these criminals who you just now read have been accused of so many cases, 16 cases against him. Do you want these criminals to roam about freely in the society? And why should the BJP friend from here?
All right, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it at that. I'm also getting a piece of breaking news that I need to go to. But Prashant and Kamru Chaudhary, thank you. I have to move on to this piece of breaking news that's coming in. Thank you very much for joining us. We have an update on the ongoing truckers' strike. Remember, they've been protesting against what they call the hit-and-run law. There was a meeting between the Home Secretary and members of the Truckers Association that has just concluded some time back. And we're given to understand that some of the representatives of the Truckers Association have returned after that meeting, and they have said that they are satisfied with the outcome of the meeting and that they are now calling off their strike. This is what one of the representatives has said, that the new rule will not be implemented right now, that before implementing the rule 106/2, there will be a discussion between representatives of the government and the All India Motor Transport Congress, and only after that will this particular rule, which many are using the phrase hit and run law in common parlance, it's 106/2 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, that will only be implemented after further consultations. Pending that now, the truckers have decided to end their protest. So this is the piece of breaking news that is just coming in. This is after a meeting between the Union Home Secretary and representatives of the All India Motor Transport Congress, who had been on a strike these last few days protesting against this law. This law, as per the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, had put a maximum punishment of 10 years for hit-and-run cases in the event that truckers or any driver for that matter is caught in an accident where a person is mowed down and that person dies, becomes a fatality, and there is no attempt by the driver to stop and cooperate with the police and with the investigation, and the driver simply runs away, then the maximum punishment for that would be 10 years. That was the new proposal in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Now, the truckers, after the meeting with the Home Secretary, have said that they are ending their strike. Anshul has more details. Anshul, give us more background and more details as to how this resolution was brought about.
So yes, there was a massive protest that broke out. Initially, the Truck Drivers Association across the country said that they would continue the protest for at least 3 days. Now, finally, since the situation got out of hand, we saw that violence broke out in several parts of the country, and then finally this meeting happened between the truck associations and the Home Ministry, in which the Home Minister has confirmed them that whenever this law is implemented, then their point of view would be taken into consideration, because remember, the law actually makes sure that initially 304A of the IPC, which meant that any person who is involved in hit and run cases, that person would have a punishment of 2 years. But in the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, it was implemented that the person would get a jail term for at least for a maximum term of 10 years, which meant that it became a heinous crime, and the person would have to face those issues. And hence the Truck Driver Association went on a strike. Now finally the Home Ministry has been successful in convincing them that yes, these laws actually depend upon the court and how the court will interpret on case-to-case basis. But yes, also, if at all, finally, when this entire thing would be implemented, when the entire Bharat Nyaya Sanhita would be implemented, then before that, the Truck Drivers Association would be consulted and all their issues would be resolved, and hence this could be seen as a massive breakthrough that has come to the fore, which would eventually mean that the issues that they were raising, that would be solved, and also the issues that the common people might have to face because of the Truck Drivers Association going on strike, which would eventually have meant that essential commodities would have gotten more expensive. That would also get eventually solved. So yes, this is a massive breakthrough, and finally the government has come out and made sure that all the parts of the society are happy with the new Bharat Nyaya Sanhita that would be imposed whenever the Home Ministry releases that notification. Because remember, the President has already given her view on this, and the President has already signed all these 3 bills. So yes, this can be seen as a massive breakthrough and a massive relief for all the people who were very, very concerned about this new law that was brought in by the Union Home Ministry.
We'll leave it at that. As I close this segment, I also want to play out a soundbite of Ajay Bhalla. He's the Union Home Secretary. He was the person who met with representatives of the truckers' unions who were striking. This is what Ajay Bhalla had to say, and we'll take a break on the way out.
10 साल की सजा तथा जुर्माने के प्रावधान के बारे में वाहन चालकों की चिंता का संज्ञान लिया तथा ऑल इंडिया मोटर ट्रांसपोर्ट कांग्रेस के प्रतिनिधियों से आज 2 जनवरी 2024 को विस्तृत चर्चा की। सरकार ये बताना चाहती है कि ये नए कानून एवं प्रावधान अभी लागू नहीं हुए हैं। हम ये भी बताना चाहते हैं कि भारतीय न्याय संहिता की धारा 106(2) को लागू करने से पहले ऑल इंडिया मोटर ट्रांसपोर्ट कांग्रेस से विचार विमर्श करने के बाद ही निर्णय लिया जाएगा। हम ऑल इंडिया मोटर ट्रांसपोर्ट कांग्रेस तथा सभी वाहन चालकों से अपील करते हैं कि आप अपने अपने कामों पर वापस लौट आएं। धन्यवाद।
Hello, Moto.
Israeli aircraft and tanks have stepped up strikes in southern Gaza over the New Year's weekend. But the big announcement was that Israel is now planning to pull back some of its troops. This is a move being welcomed by everyone, particularly Israel's closest ally, the United States. This is a signal to a gradual shift to lowering the intensity of the operations, particularly in the northern part of the battered Gaza Strip. However, Israel also says that the war in Gaza, which has reduced much of its territory down to rubble, killing thousands and plunging more than 2 million people into a humanitarian disaster, has many more months to go before the military operation can conclude. But Israel has signaled a new phase in its offensive. A senior government official has said that the military would be drawing down some of the forces from inside Gaza later this month. Instead, the focus will shift to a much more long-term phase, which is going to be more localized. The Israeli general who spoke to Reuters described it as a mopping up operation. The Israeli official also said that the troop reduction would allow some of their reservists to return back to civilian life, and that would shore up Israel's war-battered economy. But there could be a bigger motive in here. It could potentially free up some of the Israeli army units in case there is going to be a wider conflict. And the big fear is this conflict could spread to the north with Lebanon's Hezbollah, which is an armed group that is backed by Iran. A US official, in fact, said that the decision taken by Israel appeared to indicate the start of a shift to a more lower intensity operation in the north of the Gaza Strip. Remember, that's where Israel began its operations from in the aftermath of the October 7 terror attacks. The entire 250 square kilometer enclave, the bulk of the war has concentrated on the northern part. Israel had in fact issued an ultimatum to the civilians who were living there in the north, including in Gaza City, to flee towards the south, to leave towards the south, and thereafter it started its ground operations. Washington, too, has been urging Israel to reduce the intensity of its military operation. Internationally, there have been multiple calls for a ceasefire, even as the death toll has climbed upwards of 20,000. But residents in Gaza say that Israeli planes and tanks stepped up the bombardment, particularly in the eastern and northern areas of Khan Yunis, which is in southern Gaza. It's the second biggest city in the enclave. Now, the hints of a lower tempo in northern Gaza came even as the US Navy announced that the USS Gerald Ford, which is one of the largest aircraft carriers in the world, will be returning to its home port in Virginia after being deployed to the eastern Mediterranean following the outbreak of hostilities. Remember, all of this started on the 7th of October with that Hamas attack in which over 1,000 Israelis were killed. Coincidentally, just as the United States made this announcement about the Gerald Ford, the aircraft carrier, Iran also announced that its warship Al-Borz will be entering the Red Sea. This was according to the semi-official news agency Tasnim. This comes at a time of soaring tensions on a critical shipping route on the Red Sea coast. Remember, there have been multiple attacks by Houthi rebels in Yemen who support Hamas. The United States Navy has in fact led a multi-nation effort to try and quell the kind of firefights that we've seen in this critical Red Sea transportation corridor. Artillery fire has also been reported between Hezbollah and Israel in the northern border since the start of the Gaza conflict. In fact, Israel's military has been carrying out multiple air as well as ground attacks over the last almost 3 months along the northern border. The Israeli official who spoke to Reuters also said that the situation on the border with Lebanon will not be allowed to continue as it is. This upcoming 6-month period between January and June is going to be a critical moment in how this war pans out. Now, any new escalation by Israel carries a greater risk that this could blow up into a full-blown, wider regional war. US forces are already being attacked by Iran-backed militant groups in Syria, in Iraq, and of course in Lebanon as well. The Gaza war was triggered by a surprise attack by Hamas on Israeli border towns on the 7th of October, in which Israel claims more than 1,000 of its citizens were killed. Palestinian health authorities in Gaza say, in return, Israel's offensive over the last almost 3 months has killed more than 20,000 Palestinians. Residents of Sheikh Radwan, which is in Gaza City in the northern part of the Strip, they say that tanks had withdrawn after what they described as the most intense 10 days of warfare that they've seen since this conflict began. Tanks also pulled out of Gaza City's Al-Mina district and parts of Tel Al-Hawa district, while retaining some positions in the suburbs. And that is critical because the suburbs control the main coastal road that runs north to south across the Gaza Strip. On Monday, Hamas's armed wing also claimed to have killed 15 Israeli soldiers after triggering an explosive minefield east of the Tufa neighborhood in Gaza City. Tanks remained in other parts of northern Gaza, and fighting was reported in the central parts of the enclave unabated. Multiple eyewitnesses also cited shelling by tanks in parts of the Al-Bureji refugee camp in central Gaza, which is one of the biggest refugee camps in the Strip. Hamas also showed its continued ability to target Israel after more than 12 weeks of this war, launching a barrage of rocket fire at the capital, Tel Aviv. Hamas seized more than 240 hostages on the 7th of October. Israel believes at least half of them are still being held in Gaza. Some of them were released during a brief ceasefire. Some others were mistakenly killed in airstrikes or in rescue or escape attempts. Qatar and Egypt are seeking to negotiate a new ceasefire as well as a new hostage swap deal. Without Hamas's terrorist infrastructure being destroyed and its governance capabilities completely being toppled, this war will not end. That has been the position stated by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He reiterated that on Saturday in an address to the Israeli people and said that the country must retake control of Gaza's borders with Egypt. Now, this is an area that is so crammed with civilians who have fled this carnage across the rest of the enclave. It's going to be almost unimaginable that Israel will be able to completely get rid of the 2 million plus Palestinian population, or for that matter, that Egypt will welcome all of them with open arms. Retaking that Rafah crossing, the southern border, could also constitute a de facto reversal of Israel's position that it was taken last in 2005. Remember, in 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza after another operation, a military operation there, and at that time it was said that the only realistic solution was a two-state solution. But now, with Netanyahu's weekend address saying that they need to reclaim the Rafah crossing, need to reclaim the southern border from Egypt, that does raise new questions over the future of this conflict itself and the future prospects of a two-state solution. Washington, meanwhile, maintains that Israel should allow a Palestinian government to control Gaza as and when this conflict is over. But Israel, and particularly the Netanyahu government, believes that now is perhaps the time in the middle of this conflict to once and for all bury the two-state solution. What they're looking at is a one state, and that one state happens to be the Jewish state of Israel.
Co-presented by